Hi, I'm Paul Kyogan from GKTuition, and in this video I want to talk to you about trigonometry. Now the question I've chosen to go through here is 2016 Paper 2 Question 3, Part A. In this question we're told to show that the cos of 7a plus cos a over the sine of 7a minus sine a is equal to cos 3a. Now in a question like this, you should recognize that this is just really obscure. It's just a bunch of obscure trigonometry. So there must be a formula in our log tables to solve it. Now, everything on page 13, 14 and 15 is examinable in the Leave Insert Higher level. So there's a lot of formula there, probably, especially on page 15, that you haven't used very often. So really the key to this question is to just scour your log tables until you find something that looks similar to this. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is, am I going to take the left hand side and turn it into the right hand side, or am I going to take the right hand side and turn it into the left hand side? Now the easiest way to do this question was to take the left, so I'm going to just take the left hand side and try and convert it to cot 3a. So in this case I'm ignoring the cot 3a for the rest of the question. In order to solve the top of my fraction, I have cos 7a plus cos a. You should recognize on page 15 in your log tables that in order to simplify this, I can use the formula for cos a plus cos b. So the cos of an angle plus the cos of another angle is 2 times, you add the two angles together, divide them by 2, and then you subtract the two angles and divide them by 2. So it's 2 and then cos, added my angles together, divided by 2, subtracted my angles and divided by 2. Which means 7a plus a is 8a, 8a divided by 2 is 4a. 7a minus a is 6a, divided by 2 is 3a. So my top line just becomes 2 cos 4a cos 3a. And I can do something very similar with the bottom. Sine 7a minus sine a is the sine of an angle minus the sine of another angle. So it's 2 times the cos of, you add the angles together, divide by 2, and then the sine, you subtract the angles and divide by 2. So in this case it was 7a plus a divided by 2, 7a minus a divided by 2, so it became 2 cos 4a sine 3a. You should recognize at this point that my 2's are going to cancel, my cos 4a's are going to cancel, and I'm just left with the cos of 3a divided by the sine of 3a. And at this point now, if you look at your log tables, on page 13, it tells me that the cos of a is the cos of a over the sine of a, which means that the cos of 3a over the sine of 3a is just the cot of 3a. So I started with my left hand side and I've ended up with the right hand side. So because I was asked to show, just put a tick beside it and say that it's true. Part B of this question. Now again, this is a great example of, I guarantee you the first thing you do in your leave insert if you got this question would be the wrong thing. For me, the first time I seen this question, I thought it was a unit circle question. And I thought, you know, I was checking which quadrants is cos positive in, and you know, that was my first instinct here. If you use the unit circle, you won't be able to get the cos of the angle in the form plus or minus root a over b. So I think chances are your first instinct in this case would have been wrong. I know my second instinct when I did this question was to split cos 2 theta into cos theta plus theta, and then sub into the formula for the cos of a plus b. Just trying to simplify it down and trying to work this one, what the answer was. Again, no use to us, that wouldn't have worked either. So I think I just want to highlight, often in these trigonometry questions, it's a matter of you try something, if it works, happy days, if it doesn't work, you try something else. In this case, the easiest way to do this, now there was actually 2 different ways that this would work out, but the easiest way, in my opinion, to do this one was to use this formula. On page 14, it tells me that cos squared a is equal to 1/2 times 1 plus cos 2a. So clearly that means that cos squared theta is equal to 1/2 times 1 plus cos 2 theta. And I know that cos 2 theta is 1/9. So if I just sub into this formula, instead of 2a, instead of cos 2a, I can just sub in 1/9. Now all of a sudden I've got cos squared theta and I've just got numbers, which means I'll be able to find cos squared theta, and then if I get the square root of that, that allows me to get cos theta. So let's just work our way through this one. So we'll leave the left hand side as it is. 1 plus 1/9, well that's 9/9 plus 1/9 is 10/9, and so it's 1/2 multiplied by 10/9 is equal to cos squared theta. So if I continue to multiply this one out, that becomes 10 over 18, which is the same as 5 over 9. So a half by 10 over 9 is 5 over 9. So cos squared theta is 5 over 9. If cos squared theta is 5 over 9, in order to get cos theta, I just need to get the square root of everything. So if I just get the square root of the left-hand side, I end up with cos theta. The square root of the right-hand side, well, the square root of the top, I can just leave it as the square root of 5. The square root of 9 is 3. So the square root of that is just root 5 over 3, which is in the form of root a over b. But it asked me to write it as plus or minus. So remember, the square root of any number there's actually two answers. But in the majority of cases, we ignore the second answer and we usually just take the positive one. Unless in this case where it actually asks me to write it as plus or minus. So I'm literally just going to stick in a plus or minus. So because they asked me to leave it in that form, I'm going to introduce my plus or minus. So again, I hope this video made sense. If anyone wants me to clarify something on it, then just let me know in class and I'll try and explain it differently.